and speaking of Ben Shapiro and picking on, I saw this interesting exchange. I've been meaning to have you back on the show for a while, and there are other things I want to discuss with you. But I did just want to do this for a minute tonight because this was fun. So you had the context for this is the election that just happened in Virginia, where Terry McAuliffe lost the election. And I think the point you were making in your original tweet about this, tell me if this is wrong, but is basically, okay, look, extrapolating from local races, national politics is always a little tricky, but it does seem like basically what was going on here is that, the Republicans were running on like hysteria about critical race theory and all that stuff, but McAuliffe really didn't have like a much of a positive vision to get people excited about him. He was just kind of running on like, hey, you remember how bad Trump was? Well, my opponent is linked to that. So, maybe we could work something up so you could get excited about that. And of course, that didn't work.
Yeah. I mean, I could read you the original tweet that started this.
I think we've got it.
Yeah, I said, Dems are losing Virginia. A lesson? Stop nominating Clintonites and start embracing progressives and social democracy with, of course, the red rose. And I was serious. I mean, frankly, to me, the Virginia race was just, I couldn't believe they were putting Terry McAuliffe up again. I mean, oh God, I mean, the Democrats, they just don't get it, right? Or they get it, and that's even more pathetic. And
right.
I must have been getting, I think every 10 minutes, I was getting an email from Terry McAuliffe's team asking for money. And I thought, in fact, I thought it would continue all the way through to Christmas, even if he lost. It has stopped. No, I mean, seriously speaking, I mean, did they really think money was the question here? I mean, the fact is that he's just old. I don't mean old in age, because I don't want to accuse anybody of being old in age, but he's just old. He's done. He's passé. He's part of the same crew that literally drove the Democratic Party into the ground. And, I just got fed up, and a simple little observation. But then the surprise was
right. So before we get to that, I do want to just say, I think the point you're making here is really straightforward, that like, if, the Republicans are basically going to run a culture war, that's what they do. And just sort of leading into like, well, we don't like that is clearly, I mean, just like morality, larger visions for the future of America, all of that stuff aside, right? Just as politics is clearly not working. Whereas there are all these social democratic demands, raise the minimum wage, give people health care, create jobs programs. They're actually incredibly popular. So, so Democrats who are running it, on that would have a much better chance. That's your point. But we got a response from our subject tonight, Ben Shapiro, who, apparently thought this was a hilarious thing to say. He says, "Oh man, Harvey, could it be more right? Please do this, Democrats." So of course his point is that this is that like, that like the idea, in Ben's mind, right, the only reason any Democrat ever loses anything is that, is that they're too far left, and and the voters, reject that. And so he just finds the idea that the Democrats should be endorsing, should be running on social democratic economic demands instead of cultural stuff, just hilarious. But then this is where it gets confusing, because he saw your tweet, he responded to your tweet, right? He engaged with it. Like, this isn't just like, so then you responded.
I said, oh, thank you. Yeah. Ben, let's put my voice in it. Ben, seriously, let's talk about America. I await your invitation, Harvey. That was pretty sweet, right?
Yeah, right. You'd think so. And I remember you even said you would follow him for 48 hours on Twitter. So in case he wanted to DM you.
Just for the record, I did actually follow him for 96 hours, I think, because I forgot I had followed him. And what reminded me was, I think, your message saying, let's talk.
Yeah, fair enough. Unfortunately, I've tied myself to the mast and, and I just follow him on an ongoing basis, but I don't wish that on anybody else. So yeah, so you said, let's talk about America and just in terms of thinking about in the, let's say, let's not make any judgments about how likely it is, but in the scenario where he took you up on that, what that conversation might be like. We have a clip from a debate that Ben Shapiro did do with her friend Anna Kasparian, where I think the exact subject that you're raising came up. So Ben, do we have that clip? It's the 1619 one.
We've had the 1619 Project, we've had the book called 1620, 1776 Commission, all of them designed to push back on that. I saw a great quote from a noted political scientist who said, "America is not a lie, but a disappointment because it is a hope." Would you agree that's a good description? And would you also agree that the U.S. is an exceptional country? Ben, I'll start with you.
I mean, I obviously believe that the United States is an exceptional country. I think that our history is filled with moments of glory. It's also filled with some terrible tragedy and some terrible evil. There's no question about any of that. To suggest that America is a disappointment is to suggest that utopia is a real place, or that whenever you say somebody's a disappointment, you have to say compared to what? And what exactly are you shooting for? Compared to the ideal, of course, everybody's a disappointment. Saints are disappointments compared to the ideal. But if what you're talking about is America as a whole is somehow disappointing compared to, for example, what other countries around the world stand for, or what they have provided to their citizens, or what they have provided to the globe, then by no means is America a disappointment. America is a tremendous success story. In fact, it's the greatest success story in world history.
So,
Harvey,
thoughts?
Did they spend a whole evening talking like that? Because I can't imagine. I mean, the fact is that you know that I actually believe in the American promise, probably more than anyone else on the left.
Mm-hmm.
But sure as hell, that's not the way I would ever defend it. And what I actually said to Ben Burgis, and I lost the in-between message, and I repeated it today, is, for all your talk,
Ben Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro. You're my only Ben. You know that's my problem. You're the only Ben I think about. So, in fact, can I just tell you, I don't know if you were in on the conversation at that moment on Michael's show a few years ago. I'm sure that people brought up Ben Shapiro's name, and I said, "Who the fuck is Ben Shapiro?"
I actually do remember that. Yes,
you do. Thank you. Thanks.
I think early 2019.
Yeah, I said to him, "For all your talk, Ben, I guess you don't care as much as I do about America's historic purpose and promise and how we might redeem and advance it." In other words, he has no look. He's a classic case of the right. I actually, by the way, last few weeks, thinking I might want to review them for someone, I actually went back and sort of scanned through my eyes, not through a machine, his last 3 books, and it's just amazing. It's a sad comment on the right. I mean, 3.2 million followers he has, and he says nothing. Okay. He says absolutely nothing, but I believe that he actually wants to say something. So I had thought if I come on a show, I would help him say something, and I might liberate him from the bullshit that he's been sort of subjecting himself to.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I actually did, for better or for worse, I actually did read one of those books when I was helping Michael with Against the Web, the right side of history, how reason and moral purpose made the West great. But I mean, I guess what really strikes me about this, and why I actually do think it would be a really interesting event if he ever did take you up on that kind offer, is that, the difference between the way that you talk about America and what you call the American promise and the way he talks in that clip couldn't be more dramatic, because I think what you're talking about is sort of like some stated ideals, that come out at certain points in American history, from the American Revolution, you're particularly interested in Thomas Paine, to Lincoln, Gettysburg Address, and going into these sort of movements for change in the late 19th century and early 20th century. You're very interested in the New Deal, and that's all about like this sort of about potential progress. And
The struggle, look, I have no reservations in acknowledging that the class struggle will continue with or without good ideas.
Sure.
Okay, let me make that clear. But it is the case that every generation and every iteration of the American radical story, whether they were abolitionists or feminists or whatever, every one of them was empowered by that fundamental promise. And only a fool would fail to see that the better angels of our nature are those radical movements. And Ben Shapiro can't seem to, he'll do the kind of thing, well, it's the greatest success story ever. Yeah, there have been some tragedies.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the thing is, it's not even like, what I really see in that contrast. Like let's even just kind of leave aside. And I mean, this is a big thing to leave aside, right? But I mean, like let's leave aside all of the sort of hideous oppression, exploitation, and degradation, everything else that that he's sort of in there, right? It's like the old Seinfeld thing where you yada yada, parts of the story you don't want to get into, right? That all the stuff he's yada yada in there, slavery and all of that, right? Like leave all of that aside, and it's still pretty. I don't know. I mean, I think there's something kind of shocking about that dismissal of saying there's anything American that's been disappointed, because it just seems like what he's saying is he loves this country so damn much that he doesn't want it to be any better for people who live in it than it is. Like that he doesn't want to improve it in any way. That is how much he cares about America.
That is a great point. That is a really good point, which, by the way, was not part of my thinking, but that's excellent, in fact. Yeah. And if I could just sidebar this whole conversation and tell you that I was in New York last week, and David Feldman and I had spent a couple of hours together, and he was raving about your debate with Turning Point's, what's his name?
Oh, Charlie Kirk, yeah.
Charlie Kirk. He thought you just did a job there.
Well, appreciate that. So thank you so much, Harvey. I hope that other Ben takes you up on it. But we're not gonna hold our breaths. But that would be good. You have been watching free public content from Give Them an Argument. To access every single episode of the show, the main show on Monday nights, all of the streams, all of the debate breakdowns, all of the patron-exclusive post-games on Monday nights, all of the patron-exclusive bonus episodes every week, and much, much more, go to patreon.com/Ben Burgis. I cannot resist ending this with, don't be foolish.